Love and light to all. Coming at you today from Fayetteville, North Carolina. We just got spanked by storms yesterday. Well, the whole state did, but it's pretty nice. Our first cracks of thunder for the year. Thought today I would just kind of sort of give you my life story, my journey. And my journey started out in a broken marriage between my mom and dad when I was maybe 5 or 6, I guess. And my mom's whole side of the family, very Christian, very religious. And so I grew up going to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And when I got to be a teenager, I was kind of a unique person, I guess, because I was into heavy metal, long hair, that whole thing, but I wasn't opposed to, at that time, God of the book, God of religion, or the God that everybody's taught about, which I now know to be an egregor. But at the time I didn't know that, so I embraced it. When I was about 16, I got my only tattoo on my right arm, shoulder. Which looks like that. And it says in the banner, "Receive him." So I incidentally took up the yoke of Christianity. Was going to have and create the first Christian death metal band, because at the time none existed. There were starting to be Christian thrash bands, but nothing really in the death metal department. And so that was me and my bandmates' goal, was to become the first Christian death metal band. My friend incidentally did go on to create a pretty heavy death metal band called Disencumbrance, and then they later became Detrimental. And now my high school buddy Joe is got kind of a solo project where he does all the vocals and the guitars and I think the bass, and then he programs the drums. I'm trying to think of what that one's called. Oh, Wise as Serpents is what that one's called. So I went on in Christianity pretty seriously for many years, and slowly over time I just became more despondent, more sort of detached, and was just starting to really kind of question whether all this could be right or not, and whether the God in this book is the creator of all. And then studying the Bible my own self, I started to come across things that made me question, and then I had questions that nobody could really answer. Like, why would the creator tell his creation, part of his creation, to kill and slaughter another part of his creation? That one really stumped me. And that one was really the catalyst, I guess you could say, for waking up to this psyop called Christianity. And so by following intuition but I'm a little ahead of myself. So before I got on the path I'm on now, I was living in a city, packed city, desert city, Phoenix, Arizona, people everywhere, heat, cement, bricks, gravel, cactus, and I'm not suited for that. I mean, I don't really mind heat, but I need nature. I need wildlife. I need trees, plants. I'm really big into gardening, and not just vegetable gardening, but just all kinds of gardening and having plants. And one of these videos here in spring, I'm gonna probably give you a tour of what I've done in my yard so far to create, because I'm gonna turn my whole 1 acre into just a big garden. So I've already gotten started on that, but I'm gonna wait until spring where some stuff's blooming more and whatnot, and I'll just show you what I'm up to. So I've become very despondent in that city, and I was very depressed, and the depression went on for years, and I was pretty much trying to make exit strategy plans, meaning exiting this life. But that's a hard step to take, especially when you don't really know what you believe about what comes next and all that. So I never got to the point of following through with it. But what I also did was decided, maybe if I can just get out of the city, maybe I can just get out from where I am and just have a fresh start, maybe that would help. And so my wife and I decided to sell our house and move basically to the other side of the country. And I had never been anywhere east of East Texas. The furthest east I had ever been. I'm from Texas originally, so I went west, got stuck there for 23 years, and then decided to come east, which was the best thing I ever did. Moved to Holly Springs, which is basically Raleigh, North Carolina, and I really only knew one person in this whole state, and she was a woman I met online that was an oil painter, and we started collaborating, oil painting, long distance. I would paint my part, and then I would ship the canvas to Raleigh, where she would do her part, and then we had a completed collaboration painting. I think we did about 10 or 11. And they all came out really good. All of them were, I just really like them. Matter of fact, one of them is my profile icon that I use on all my social networking for my profile pic, is actually that painting called Mind of Matter. So I moved here about 5 years ago, and almost from day one I began a metamorphosis process. I fully woke up to the psyop that is religion, Christianity. And interesting in this whole process is that my best friend, who still lives in Phoenix, also was a Christian, believed the same things I believed. I mean, we had basically, you could say we had the same beliefs. So I called him up one day and I said, man, this is all bullshit. This whole thing with Christianity, this whole God idea, this whole thing is a big psyop. It's bullshit. We've been duped. And the answers are within. All the answers for everything is within. And I had taken up meditation. I'm sure some of you've heard a little bit about my squirrel, but through the process of raising my baby squirrel, my heart chakra activated kind of spontaneously. And when that happened, it was like the filters that I had been looking at reality through came off. And for the first time ever in my life, I saw a much clearer view of what life actually is and how it works. And I didn't know a whole lot about it at that time, because it was just, it was like the crossover. It was like stepping out of a dark room into light, where you can actually see and observe and know what you're looking at. So when I told him all that, he had the typical Christian response of, you're just having a lapse of faith. You're backsliding, maybe. Don't worry. It'll be okay. That whole thing of, you're gonna come back to believing what you believe, but for now, you're having other thoughts or whatever. So I'd proceed from time to time to unload on him all the stuff that I was coming to realize and figuring out. And he was pretty intrigued by it. And wasn't too long after that he kind of started going down this path. And then it wasn't too long after that he shed that whole thing as well, and began to embrace this whole is just a new way of thinking. It's a whole, at that time it was like, man, we got to reprogram, man. We got to reprogram our mind, body. We got to get the connection between the heart and the brain functioning properly. And this is all a process. It's going to take some time, but I would tell him, man, wait till a year from now. Wait till, if we're where we're at now with this, maybe let's say this is a year into it. I was like, man, if we know, if we figured this much out in a year, we understand this much in a year, imagine what we're going to be knowing and realizing in a year from now. And then that year just passed not too long back. And so I'm basically, I guess, in my third to fourth year, even though I pretty much consider the time I got on that plane to come to Raleigh, my life began to change drastically at that time, at just the moment of getting on that plane to leave the past behind, leave every single thing I knew and every person I knew behind, completely going into the unknown, not knowing anything about it, not knowing if it was the right move, not knowing if it was going to be a place we wanted to live, all that, just complete blank unknown. But that's where faith kind of comes in, is I did have faith. And faith is just belief. And so I did believe that my life was going to get better, and that I was going to resolve all the things that were unresolved within myself, and these questions, and this trying to understand this God of the books and all that. So in 5 years now, my life is drastically different. I'm never depressed. I can't quite say I don't believe in it, I guess. I guess I maybe would say I don't believe it's for me anymore, because I basically lived the whole half of my life almost, right up until around 40, struggling with a lot of depression and a lot of the mind not being under control, meaning you just have these incessant thoughts that carry you away, and then those thoughts lead to other thoughts, and those thoughts lead to other thoughts, and it's just sort of a runaway mind train. And I'm sure you've probably been on it before. It's not a fun ride. It jerks you around, bangs you around, takes you up and takes you down. So, what an amazing journey now. So, he's also doing really great. I mean, speaking honestly here, I did not think that I thought he was going to think I was kind of nuts. Like basically the other Christian people that I know, they have their program. So when they hear you say something like, Jesus is not meant to be a literal character, but a literary character. He's a symbolic character. And he is basically, he represents you. So you could just put yourself in the place of Jesus, and that would be closer to the truth than these people thinking that some external man came to do something for them, because we're not living in a reality where another man dies for another man in order that some esoteric law might be fulfilled or whatever. It's complete bullshit. The reality does not work that way. The Creator has bestowed you with every single thing that you need. So if you got convinced somehow that you needed to be saved from something, then you are able to save yourself from whatever that something is, because all of it's based on your own thinking anyway. To think that you were lost and that you needed saving is a thought. It's just mental. And so what? The Creator hasn't given you the mental capacity, the spiritual capacity, access to the prime frequency that you might do whatever it is you think needs to be done. But we all got duped into thinking that some external thing was the answer, and that external thing could be anything. It could be Jesus, the literal physical man, dying to save you. It could be Allah sending the messenger to save them. It could be anything. 1,000 years from now, these people in the lower world might come up with something crazy like, I don't know, deer. Deer have been divinely chosen to save man. And so everybody's going out into the woods trying to have telepathy with deer because they believe that that's the way that they're going to be saved. It's no different. These are all just mentalities, thoughts, beliefs. So they're all crazy in the sense that they're all psyops, and I guess sometimes we do psyops to our own selves. We don't necessarily need to be psyoped by somebody else. We can come up with this stuff by our own self. Example, people playing with a Ouija board conjure up something they think is a demon or a ghost or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're getting haunted. Now they can't sleep without the lights being on, and they have this whole psychosis that happens, and now they're doing all these weird things they didn't used to do, and now they've got this superstitious belief, and now they think a demon is after them and the whole thing. But it's nothing more than an egregor. It's a thought form. It's something that you created. And if you're going to have faith in it, if you're going to place belief in it, then you can empower it to do what you're expecting. Because your conscious thoughts program the subconscious. And whatever you believe, whatever you have faith in, and it doesn't have to be stated, it doesn't have to be even consciously known. You could unconsciously be believing that a demon is after you, and all this weird stuff starts to happen, and to you, that confirms it. And so now you really believe it. So now you've told your subconscious, hey, I expect encounters with demons because I'm believing it and I'm having faith in it. You would never say it like that, but that's exactly what you're doing. See? So you don't really consciously realize what it is you're doing. Or they're doing, whoever's doing that crap. Getting caught up in psyops. So it's been one heck of an interesting journey. I would say, prior to 5 years ago, I would have said life pretty much sucks. That we've all been made slaves. And I still agree with that to the extent that everybody's been made a slave that's willing to play that part. See, it's all consent. So once you realize that, you say, okay, I'm not gonna be a slave then, since it's up to consent. In other words, it's up to your choice. And my choice is I damn sure don't want to be nobody's slave. So forget that. So I no longer have belief in that. So I'm no longer putting faith into that. And so little by little, you begin to experience your freedom. You begin to take back the authority of your own life and your own experience. And then you begin to see that, oh wow, that works just as much as believing all that other crap, that we're slaves and that somebody's got some sort of power over us and all that. Nothing has power over you that you don't give the power to. But right now I'm really on this whole thing of the subconscious, because for a long time I don't think I really understood what that even meant. Like the subconscious. Like, what does that even mean? Sub, below. Conscious. Well, if you know what conscious is, then it's below conscious, subconscious. So it's a way of saying it's deep in your mind, but you don't ever think about it. Well, let's start bringing the subconscious into the conscious then. In other words, let's start thinking about what we have not been thinking about. And amazingly powerful things begin to happen when you begin to do this, when you begin to realize this. And so now you will really start taking stock of your thoughts, because every single thought, see, you could think of thoughts like pieces of wood or some tree branches or whatever floating on some water, let's say in a pond. And your thoughts are those pieces of wood floating on the pond. But if they stay there long enough, they're going to soak up the water, and eventually they're going to sink into the water. Okay, that's your subconscious. So your conscious thoughts, the longer they stay on the surface of your subconscious floating, they begin to take up the liquid and become waterlogged, and then they drop into the water and sink down into it. So your thoughts sink down into your subconscious. And the more power, the more passion, the more knowing, the more authority that is in those thoughts, then if they're powerful, if they're with really strong intention and passion and knowing, then when they sink into the subconscious, they immediately, just by themselves, activate the subconscious. And the subconscious begins to work like a supercomputer. And that supercomputer is trying every way that it can to bring to you, this gets into the law of attraction. That's what the law of attraction is. It's your subconscious bringing to you that which you truly believe, or that which you programmed it to believe. But the thing about the subconscious is that you cannot trick it, you cannot fool it, and you cannot convince it. It knows what it is you believe. Even if you're saying with your mouth the opposite, if you're saying it just to try to convince your own self, so you might be trying to convince your conscious mind that you believe something that you really don't believe, but the subconscious knows the difference, and it's only responding to what it is you truly believe. So you see now how important your thoughts are. Our thoughts are so important, because if you're constantly sending mixed messages to your subconscious, what do you think's going to happen? Let's say you got into a taxi and started telling the taxi driver all these different directions. What do you think would happen? He would not know where to go. He probably wouldn't even go. He probably would say, dude, look, you either got to decide one specific point that you want to go to that I can go to, or we're not going anywhere, because I can't take all these crazy directions at one time. We have to go step by step and figure out where it is we're headed. Right? So your subconscious is just like that. It needs clear direction. And the clearer the direction, the more oneness of mind we are, the faster that it gets busy doing what it naturally does, because it is observing laws, laws of the universe, universal laws. That's what it goes by. So there's no way to fool it. There's no way to trick it. There's no way around it. You either work with it the way that it works, or you remain psyoped. And the psyop could be your psyop that you created your own self, or it could be other people's psyops, or it could be a combination of both. But either way, it's not doing anything good for you. It's not bringing to you what you really want. See, that's the thing about life, is that we say and we feel that we want all these different things, and when we don't get them, we get despondent, or we give up, or we say this is bullshit, this doesn't work, or whatever. But it's just our own ignorance that is why it doesn't work. Like, if it's not working, like, this is a universal law, so it's not like it's going to work for 90% of the people, but 10% of the people just can't do it, or whatever. It's a universal law, so it's there for every single person. It works the same for every single person. So if you get that, if you understand what I'm saying right now, then you realize your future is going to be so amazing, because now I realize that every single thing in my experience and my future, all of it, is being really dictated by me. According to the universal laws. So if we can understand these universal laws better, or study them maybe, or meditate upon them, and maybe we don't even know what they are, so maybe we could even meditate to discover what they are. Right? But this is something, see, the thing about the truth, the true truth, the thing about the true truth is that nobody can tell you what it is. Nobody can tell you how it works. Because if they do, you're not going to get it. Because you really can't get spirituality from someplace. You really can only get the truth, the true truth, the true spirituality from within yourself. Now you can have mentors, you can listen to teachers, you can listen to YouTubers and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That shows intention. You know, if you're watching my video, your heart is in the right place, because you're somebody that wants to know, and you want to know that you know. Right? You don't want to think that you figured it out, let's say, because so and so made you hip to it. Because again, you can hear all you want, you can listen all you want, but you have to do in order to know. So in order to know that what I'm saying about the subconscious is true, and the conscious itself works this way, you're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to practice it yourself. You're going to have to, first, before you do any of that, you're going to have to believe it.